Our guest host today is Mark Modzelewski. He's the Vice President of Strategic Opportunities at Nanodynamics. That is the leading private company in the development of nanomaterials and nano applications. These are things like fuel cells, armor, and all sorts of consumer goods like nano pants. Now, from a business angle, Mark, you say that when we're looking at this, we're really only in about the second inning of nanotech right now. What's that mean?
It's pretty early on. I mean, we've gone beyond the, Macarena, pet rock fad stage. But we're starting to see now is actually companies generating income, generating revenue. We're seeing the large corporations start to play in the space a lot more heavily. The government investment in the university is starting to trickle out into products that are hitting the market space, and people and consumers actually now being able to touch nanotech products.
What kind of products?
A variety of them. The first one I'll actually talk about is one internally at our firm, which is actually a golf ball. It's a hollow metal core golf ball. And the thing that's interesting about this is that when you have a hollow metal core, it shifts weight to the outside. So if you hook, you slice, it takes about 25% off that hook or slice because it's not rotating in the same manner.
What's nano about that?
It's actually how the metal is treated, and also how this polymer core around it is also done, which I may add is done with
so it's kind of like cheating, though.
It is. Well, actually, interestingly enough,
USGA, a bunch of golf balls.
USGA approved it last month, so now it'll actually be viable for the tour or anything else. So they
can cheat legally.
They can cheat legally, actually, right now.
It's a little disconcerting. The ugliest swings in the world, the worst slice swing, and you're going to see this perfectly straight drive. I mean,
no wonder Tiger does so well.
But people have been playing with like a Buick on the end of a stick and calling it a Callaway for years. So I mean, so it's not very different right now.
Big sponsor of Tiger.
Exactly.
GM uses a lot of the body parts in their cars with nanotech too. What's
actually,
that?
The panels and the step up, which is the thing you put your foot on to get into the cabin of SUVs, for several years have actually been a nano composite. It wears better. They can still make it for the exact same price. It's more temperature resistant. It doesn't fade in the sun. Things along those lines. So that's been one of the benefits of why they've moved to it.
And Joe, you're going to like this one. Flat screen TVs. What's new about the technology there?
Samsung, DuPont, and a few others are actually working with carbon nanotubes to make flat screen TVs. And even at the outrageous price of carbon nanotubes, which are more than platinum, they'll be able to bring down the flat screen price to about half of the current levels. And those will probably be introduced to the market within the next 18 to 36 months.
And finally, wall paint that blocks out cell phone calls?
Yeah, this one's actually really funny. A company called Natural Nano has worked with copper in a carbon nanotube structure to actually infuse them in paint, and it blocks out cell phone signals, and it actually doesn't run afoul of the various laws on allowing cell phone signal traffic. So if, say, a movie theater or restaurant wanted to do it, they could actually block out cell phone calls, and that's already available for the market.
Great idea.
That's a great idea. Now, there are also a lot of exciting things that are coming up down the road. We're going to be talking more about nanotechnology over the next hour, and what you can expect to see maybe in the next 10 years out of nanotechnology as well. At 8:45 Eastern Time, we'll also be speaking with Senator George Allen. He's one of the biggest nanotech proponents on Capitol Hill, and we'll find out where the venture capital dollars are going in nanotech from Jennifer Fonstad at Draper Fisher Jurvenstein. All that coming up.
Still to come in the meantime.
All right, it is time for some rapid fire with our guest host, Mark Modzelewski. He's the Vice President of Strategic Opportunities at Nanodynamics. And Mark, you say when you look out there at China and India, the idea of research and development from these countries, it's a little overrated.
Yeah, I think it was a journal on Monday said that, they'll be surpassing the United States in R&D. And the bottom line is they have huge infrastructure problems. They have problems with water. They won't be able to compete on the price to get the oil and gas they need once they're actually facing up against this. And frankly, a lot of the things that get mentioned about their degree programs, a PhD in India is not necessarily the same thing as a PhD in the United States. And it seems like everybody is following this Me Too attitude. It's very much like everyone's spending hundreds of millions of dollars to go onto the web and have a website built for them circa 1999. And I think they're forgetting that there are other places to be that are quite cost effective.
Are you saying the engineers in India aren't the best? I mean, they're known as the best engineers in the world, the best training in India?
The ones that come here end up being the best in the world. But
So
many of the ones over there that are listed out really don't have the skill set of a PhD engineer here, for instance. So again, if you're replacing them in an R&D perspective, they don't have necessarily the quality.
Hey, Mark, is neuroscience going to be the next issue you're watching?
Yeah, neuroscience has been becoming increasingly interesting, if nothing else, because of the aging of the baby boomers. So many people are now looking at potentially confronting Alzheimer's disease, different medical devices that might confront strokes. And so this market is actually heating up quite a bit right now, and people are starting to look at it for investments right now.
What about Silicon Alley? Is this a dead zone?
It's funny. New York Times on Sunday has this big article that Silicon Alley is back, and it's just a bunch of blogs. I mean, every kid in the Midwest has a blog, and somehow because somebody's doing it in New York and doing a publishing online, that there's somehow some great technology happening in New York, and that's just not the case. They dress better in Silicon Alley than the Valley, but that's about the only thing that you can say that they do superior in New York.
You know, the economy is not perfect, I'll give you that, but you think we are a bunch of pessimists when it comes to looking at the economy?
Well, you look at things like the New York Times and the housing market. When it was heating up, that was a bad thing. It's going to overheat. Now that it's sinking, it's a bad thing. It's like, when was the economy ever a good thing, any of this growth over the past few years as far as media coverage goes? Employment's heating up too much. It's sinking too much. When was the good story ever told about it? And, I think we see from the Beige Book yesterday and some of the numbers that we're seeing come out right now, the economy's doing pretty darn good, and maybe it's time to acknowledge it.
You understand we're trying to sell coverage of these events, and to sell coverage of these events, you can't say things are good and the house is not burning. I mean, you understand what we're up against.
Oh, absolutely.
We're all in business here.
Everyone's in a business, as is the media. Yes.
The market may be where it is, but fella, I've got some things to tell you that are very worrisome. So you just stay tuned.
I think long term,
Pollyanna whistling past the graveyard attitude of yours. You got to get with it, because you're missing a lot. You're missing a lot.
We don't go to the airport and watch planes land safely, right? That's the only thing I'm saying.
It's the blockade on Capitol Hill. Two senators, Hillary Clinton, one of them, are vowing to hold up the approval of the president's new FDA chief until the agency makes a decision on the morning after pill and whether it should be sold over the counter. And we'll show you why water, that's right, H2O, it's a big part of nanotechnology research. And we'll tell you what it means for investors, too. Squawk Box will be right back.
That is why today I'm in.
Thank you.
Our guest host today is Mark Modzelewski. He's the Vice President of Strategic Opportunities at Nanodynamics. Now, Mark, you say Nanodynamics is starting to look at water. This could be one of the next frontiers. What are you talking about?
Yeah, definitely. When you look at nanotech and water, what we're always talking about are size. And Joe and I were talking about that earlier, how much that even mattered. But in this case, what you're really talking about is things like filtration and membranes. And if the gunk, whether it be bacteria or any other additives, is smaller than the water molecules, then when you force it through little holes, you can basically peel off the bad stuff and get just pure water through. And that's basically the thought behind it. And we've long used filtration methods. What's happening now when we're able to work at the nanoscales, we're able to up them a lot more. We're able to be far more accurate in it. And another thing that's a big problem of current filtration and desalinization methods is energy. To actually desalinate water, 40 to 60% of the cost of any desalinization plant is actually the energy that it takes to run it and to force that high throughput. And what we're seeing right now is the ability to potentially do that using a lot less energy. And that's where nanotech's coming into play.
What are we talking about? You used to be able to take dirty water and make it clean, but now you can take really dirty water and make it drinkable?
Theoretically, we're very close to being able to recycle through our water in our homes. And as horrible as a thought
what's that mean?
As horrible as a thought that might be to some people, you literally could continue to use the same water in a cycle.
Like this water you shower?
Howard Hughes already did that.
Yeah, it's funny. Dean Kamen.
Don't explain.
Dean Kamen, who made the Segway, he actually has a
Superman?
No, the Segway.
The guy, the Segway shooter and that thing. He actually,
he's smart too.
he is. He actually has developed a very low energy. It can even run on manure. Yeah, exactly. A box that can actually wash water, and he wants to introduce it into the third world. And at a show recently, he put his own urine through the machine and proceeded to drink it, and to prove that it could be done. And that's not a test I'm willing to do, no matter how well our scientists tell us at the company. But again, theoretically, it's something that we could move towards.
Straight out of Waterworld. Remember Costner?
Waterworld or Aviator, one or the other.
So wait a second. This box exists, but it's not on the market yet, right?
Dean Kamen's idea is to actually introduce it directly into the third world. This is part of his I think he feels he's made money and he's trying to save the world, much like Bill Gates and others who make too much money and feel guilty about it. I do not feel that guilt yet. It's called Slingshot, and he is working with a variety of venture capitalists and global organizations like the UN to try and introduce it into places like India, Malaysia, Africa, etc.
If it does work, that does have the potential to be life-changing.
It absolutely does. You know, when you look at diseases around here, about 60% of the people die every day because of water. As much as we talk about the fight against AIDS and things like that in the third world, it's actually waterborne illnesses that are killing people, and this would have a huge impact.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting stuff. We'll get to a lot more regarding nanotechnology later on in the hour. In the meantime, this programming note for you: Microsoft CEO Steve